What is up, down, and sideways, you gorgeous individuals? It's another epi of League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys as we got a little bit of a hiatus, few days off for the LPL and LCK, but we back in a big way. Friday action over in South Korea. Maybe not the main marquee matchups, but a couple of spicy ones nonetheless. When you got Mr. Zeus's birthday, they say instead of a cake, what do you want, Zeus? How do you want to celebrate? And he says, I want to become the Shy. So lock me in, Camille and Anivia top lane.
Anivia is the spicy one that comes through. Camille, we've certainly seen from Zeus before and know
not
that
a tank. He said, I'm not playing tanks today.
No. That is all attack, all damage Camille coming through in that top side, the flanks, everything else. And yes, the next game up is the Anivia game for him. And it is still a tanky Anivia in the top side.
That's an ARAM build if I've ever seen one.
Taking about, 35 million years to take down the egg that she goes down into. But yes, relatively controlled from the side of Hanwha Life through this all. A little bit of fun for Zeus' birthday. Doesn't mean that there weren't a couple of mistakes, a couple of positive things done by the side of DRX to make these interesting games.
Yeah, and listen, both of these games, DRX absolutely has an angle, is maybe one play away from getting back into this game. And remember, DRX had the better record coming into this matchup at 3-1, and we did get to see Teddy making his debut. Obviously, he's had some health flu issues for the first couple of weeks, and Lazyfield has filled in admirably, but great to see Teddy back in the lineup.
It is really good to see Teddy back in this lineup, and yes, even though this series doesn't go the way for DRX, the overall quality shown from this team is enough that I'm interested. I'm biting on that fishing hook. I'm hanging on for this DRX team to see how they can progress through the LCK. The thing is, again, as we all know, you got to make sure you're not one of those first squads being eliminated. You laid out being 3-2 at this point for DRX. Pretty healthy start for them in this regard. But absolutely one of these teams that with Teddy in that lineup, you do get a little bit more of that stability, the veteran presence, and that firepower he brings in that bottom lane. That's one of the key things this DRX team is going to need to rely upon as they go through so much uncertainty with a lot of the young members on the team. Unfortunately,
it wasn't much of a highlight for Teddy because Viper had himself another series talking about, double digits, like 22 kills, 2 deaths, 13 assists for him across this one where he does pick up series MVP, spoiling the Anivia pick for Zeus. Where's his MVP? Come on.
Oh, man, I think that when you're looking at what Viper can do in the bottom lane right now, you'd be really scared if you're any of these other ADCs in the LCK. Heck, never mind around the rest of the world who are going to maybe get to experience it at the first stand event that we roll through the first time around this time. But when you're looking at Viper and what he did in this series, the Ezreal gameplay, man, I'm thinking he might be the best Ezreal in the LCK, which is certainly a very, very prestigious title to be holding on to. I think Ruler, maybe we could see a Ruler game in here or there, might change things up. But for now, I'm rolling with what is going on for Mr. Viper.
Yeah, right now with Ruler easing back into the LCK, the Guma Smash saga going on for T1, I think Viper's pretty clearly the best ADC, not just Ezreal, in the LCK right now. So yeah, Hanwha Life moves on to 3-2 to now tie that record with DRX. But we know they're ramping up and will be terrifying when best of fives eventually start rolling around. Other end of the spectrum, we are freaking out. No pun intended there. Actually, pun fully intended. As the DN Freaks. Things look good in game 1 against KT, and then they fall off the track entirely. 31-6 in kills for the favor of KT in games 2 and 3. And this, we always talk about teams being better than the sum of their parts. This Freaks roster just feels like there's no synergy within the squad.
That is the problem. It's one of these ones where it feels like, yes, that's what a beautiful Lego piece. And this one too. And then you try to, connect it together and make it doesn't turn into anything. It's the way that it feels right now for the DN Freaks. a disappointing result and performance from them. I think individually you could look at almost every single member of this one, but for me, of course, the big ticket item and the big draw to it is Berserker down in the bottom lane. How's he, adapting to going back and going into the LCK, performing at that type of level after being in the LCS, dominating in the LCS, and to see this one a little bit of a struggle in this series, a couple of mistakes, some sloppy choices individually. This one wasn't just about the team. This was also on Berserker as the individual when you're talking about the DN Freaks.
It feels a bit like he's still got some of that LCS Cloud9 mentality where he's almost playing solo queue a bit, just worried about, him staying alive, him being the guy who's got money, who's going to carry the game. Something's got to change for this team to get on the same page, and it's a talented roster. It could be a top 5 team, but the synergy just isn't there. And now you're talking about them being in legit danger of being that first team eliminated. We still assume that this Baron group is going to be the losing squad in this opening round. If BNK FearX beats Nongshim, which isn't a huge ask, and if the Bros take a game off, I know it's D+. They don't have to beat them, though. Just win a game. It should be the Freaks being that first team eliminated.
Which is an absolute travesty for this team because, again, so much of the things that we talk about with that first team being eliminated is what you lose out on, what you miss out on in that time away. And how many times have we seen a setup like this? How many times have we seen one of those teams that was eliminated find a way to become competitive in the next couple of splits? Not very often. It doesn't really happen, that turnaround, once you are eliminated this early, this type of situation, and removed from that competitive part of the play. That is going to be the big risk when you're looking at this from the DN Freaks, and especially with the lineup like this, as you laid out. A lot of talent, just hasn't really found that synergy, that communication, everything together. Talking about Pyosik in the top side, he hasn't really developed anything, in the jungle with Bulldog in the mid lane. You're looking at Life and Berserker down in the bottom lane. I don't think I've developed any type of synergy. Life hasn't developed any synergy roaming around the map. So there's a lot of problems with that for the DN Freaks. And again, not necessarily anything that's immediately next time you hit up the rift, it's going to be solved or we're immediately making progress on it type of thing. But you need to stay in it to be able to get those tests, to get that type of work and keep working on it. Get eliminated here, which is a very real possibility as you laid out. That is an absolute misfire for the DN Freaks.
And if that does end up happening, I'm pretty sure there's going to be some panic roster moves this early to try and get a volt, get a jump start into the synergy for this squad. It's still not as quick an elimination as what's going to happen to some LTA teams on the weekend. That's right. We're going into week 2, the second week of action, and 2 of these teams are going to be eliminated this week. That's right. Shopify or Dignitas might play a grand total of 4 games on the split before it's over.
Pretty rapid fire here in the LTA is the way things are going to go. Yes, week 2, and we already are on that edge, on that precipice of knocking off one of our squads at this point in time. Very, very crazy time for the LTA, but that all means that everything is big time, big money deals for this weekend. You got to be paying attention to these matches.
And if you're looking first week, basing it off of that play, I think Lion Gaming and Disguised are the easier options to pick in that losers bracket to at least stay alive. They looked more competitive and had more pushback in their opening round matches.
And I think for especially for Leon, you're expecting more from this week because you should be able to play at a traditional way. You're not going to have to be playing from remote is my expectation. I don't know if they've maybe made an announcement that they still are type of thing. Expectation, I think, is that it's been enough time that you should be able to field the roster on stage, be all together. And I'm expecting that to bring a little bit of a boost for this Leon team, which didn't look necessarily all that outclassed by Cloud9.
The winner's side of the bracket, obviously, winners of these matchups are, boom, automatically advancing to that conference bracket where they will fly down to Brazil to play against some of the LTA South members. We got Team Liquid versus 100 Thieves, and then the banger for sure, Cloud9 versus FlyQuest. This is a great opportunity for this new look Cloud9 roster to make an impact, but FlyQuest are going to be the big favorites still.
FlyQuest should be the big favorite still. I'm expecting this one to be a bit of a brawl. I want Cloud9 to bring some heat to this one. And this is not about seeing whether FlyQuest truly is that strongest team at the very top. It's about, is Cloud9 going to be in striking distance? Are they going to have a chance this year, whether it's this, going to be building up through this split, or is it going to be next split, the one after type of one? Can you see that progress, that vision for this team working out to be at that top tier of the LTA? That's what this matchup is going to give us that little bit of a preview for. I think it's very important. Again, Thanatos individually into someone like Bwipo up in that top side, even Loki in the mid lane, what he can do, that is going to be the things that you are really keeping your finger on the pulse for if you are Cloud9. And then on the FlyQuest side, how much can you push it? Where is Inspired compared to Blabber right now is one of the important comparables that we always like to check in on. And then your bottom lane, the improvement of Masu against what is the reuniting of Sven and Vulcan down in that side for Cloud9.
Yeah, it really feels like the old era versus the new era when you're looking specifically at that bot lane matchup. But again, this is where things start to hopefully have some spice, because FlyQuest and Team Liquid are just the favorites on paper. It's more, is this a two-team region, or can we get some fight back from squads like Cloud9 and 100 Thieves? That's what we're hoping for, at least.
Yes, very much hoping for, I think, for the competitiveness, for the interesting angles, all the storylines that you want to be talking about as we move into later weeks and months and through the splits of the year. That's what you're going to need if you need the LTA to keep bringing in viewership, keep generating some excitement. Are going to be challenges like that. Dark horse options like an 100 Thieves rising up on through and throwing over teams like Team Liquid and Cloud9 and FlyQuest, even throwing them all to the side. That are the things that are going to make the LTA must-watch League of Legends. And I'm hoping for everybody's sake that we're getting a couple previews of that this weekend.
We've seen 100 Thieves do it before, come up with a colossal upset. The stakes aren't quite as high here as they were qualifying for Worlds last split against Cloud9. So maybe they're a team that thrives when their backs are against the wall pressure-wise. But big matchups in the LTA. Final week of this first round, and the LEC and LPL and LCK both back. So another full slate of weekend games that we'll have to go over post-weekend recap. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Absolute beauties. Thank you so much for hanging out, and we will catch you on that flippity flip.